Hello, my name is Gary Schotten, and I'm here to talk to you about inspiring better business. And I hope these videos and teachings and audios are helpful to you. We really want to see you to prosper and be successful in your financial realm, especially as business owners. Today I'm going to talk about the subject of payroll checks and the importance of certain things you must do and say, and specifically 4 things that you don't want to do regarding payroll checks to your employees. Now, you got to start off with the fact that most of your employees, probably, if you're like mine, and most people, even in the United States, are pretty well living paycheck to paycheck. So that payroll check coming in on time, there's pressures in their household, they're anticipating certain bills to be paid, and so there's a little bit of pressure on each worker to be sure they bring home the bread, as we say, bring home the money. Spouses are involved and bills need to be paid. So there's some pressure on those individuals. And then certainly you as a owner or manager or key employee responsible for payroll, you have a lot of pressures. I mean, there's more things than just making payroll work, and we're going to talk about creating good systems to be sure that works well. But you know, you have pressures, but you've got to make sure in one way or another, payroll is something that rises to a very high level of importance in your mind and in your company. So you signed up for the job to be the owner or the manager, and it just comes with the territory. People need their payroll checks, and they need them on time. Now, I'm going to list 4 don'ts, and I hope these are all things that could be helpful, because in most cases, and you'll hear about my stories, I have either came close to or failed in some of these areas, and I said, don't do this. Number 1, don't be late. You see, we try to create a payroll system so that it would be on time, every time, complete. On time is important. Probably in my 35 years of business ownership, I can probably only think of just a few times that we might have been a couple hours late. In other words, payroll checks normally come out at 2 o'clock. This is in my previous business, but now they're coming out and it was 4 hours late or 2 hours late. We got it out the same day, but it was late. And it was a computer problem, it was a computer glitch, and we could explain it away, but not very often. Don't be late. Don't be consistently late. I like to tell the story of my friends in Poland. This is many years ago, and it was a real deal because I knew unemployment was pretty high in Poland, and my friends' sons were in their early 20s, and they were working at TV stations. They were great guys and doing a good job, I'm sure. And I got to mention to the dad, who was my friend, I said, you know, I have a lot of pressure making sure that payroll is paid on time the same day every week. In that case, it was every other week. And he made a comment and said, are you kidding me? My sons, one of them has not been paid for 6 months. And I'm thinking, what are you talking about? Well, the system there was such that they were not a lot of jobs. And so you're either on the employed list or the unemployed list. And there's so many people unemployed that if you just got a job, you were content for the paycheck to be late. Not just a day late, not just a week late, but in this case, months late. Doesn't make sense to me, but that's how they operated. And when the company got some money to come in, and then they would finally make up back pay. You know, one time I was close to that in my company, and I just lined everybody up in the company and said, listen, the day I cannot make payroll on the same day, other than a technical issue, you need to go find a job someplace else, and if you want to work here, we'll call it a hobby. You must get your payroll check, and you as owners must be responsible for that. Very important. Number 2, don't make mistakes. You know, there's nothing more irritating than the payroll to be wrong. First of all, it causes a cycle and a system and a process to correct the payroll. Okay, it was wrong, so next week we'll correct it. Now the next week's payroll has a lot of extra scrutiny, a lot of extra observation to make sure that's right, and maybe you don't get it right even the second week on that one mistake. This could bleed into 3 weeks of confusion. So do everything you can to be sure your pay is correct. Every time for 35 years, we have a process of presenting the projected number of hours. Most of our workers work on an hourly clock. They're paid by the hours, and we give them a system. So we give them that, here's what we have ready to pay you on the Friday paycheck, but we try to give it to them on Monday and Tuesday, and they must get back and confirm that this is right. This helps us correct any mistakes. Sure, there can be mistakes, but the mistake is that it gets all the way onto the check. Don't make mistakes. That creates a system, a process, a way of doing things that you know that it's going to be systematically done. We try to now, it wasn't always this case, because of mistake or things like the power goes out, computers go down. We always try to have our pay processed and ready the day, at least one day before we actually send it out. In other words, if payday's on Friday, we have to try to have it done on Wednesday evening. That way, if something is wrong, we can work Wednesday evening, we can work Thursday, we can get it right and still make payroll. Now, right now, we do more and more what's called ACH, automatic cash sending, whatever that stands for. In other words, it's deposited right to the people's checking accounts, and we don't actually write a check, but on probably 3 of our 60 people that we actually write a check. The rest is deposited into their bank account. It's a lot better for everyone. And so that's a system. So their system is check it, check, and recheck, see if that your system's working. Don't add clutter. That's number 3. Don't add clutter onto your payroll check. There's things like you may be paying somebody mileage for using their vehicle. Or in my case, I had a system made up, so I had a way of charging back some claims when I had this previous business, and it cost me. I had to go to court. I had to prove that I wasn't stealing from my workers because I cluttered up the payroll check. Keep it as clean as you can. Don't add unnecessary things like a driving allowance. Just make another check. That way, payroll is payroll, other things is other things. Yeah, we do have a tool bill, and we allow a deduction that they sign for. By the way, you don't want to deduct anything from someone's paycheck unless you have their signature authorizing that they fully understand that they have agreed to have this pay deducted. For instance, we might give a personal loan. We don't like to, but we do. And at that point, let's make it up and say it's $300. And we say, okay, here's our agreement. For the next 10 paychecks, you're going to pay us back out of your paycheck $30. Sign here. Now it's clear. It's not cluttered. And the last thing is very important, is don't forget, at least in our society and our culture, that when you collect what's called the payroll taxes, the estimated tax, federal and state tax amount that each person is to be withheld from their check, we're responsible to withhold that. We're responsible to send that in to what we call the Internal Revenue System, and we are responsible in our size of company to send it in right away. In other words, we have pay on Friday, we send that money to the federal authorities on Friday, not a week from Friday, not a month from Friday, on the same Friday. There's rules that allows you a little bit of latitude if you just got 1 or 2 employees, but we don't hold that money for any reason. If you want to be sure and get in very hot trouble, a lot of trouble with the authorities, let's just say it that way, start withholding that money, and certainly never paying it in is almost automatically proof that you have stolen money from those employees, because you're taking their money out of their pay and sending it into their account with the feds and states in our nation. Well, I hope this is helpful. We're here to help you. We hope that you realize that there's many aspects of owning a business. There's many parts of being successful. And there's some of this that's just plain old drudgery, just plain old nuts and bolts. Getting payroll right is one of those things. You got to do it. You don't have an option. Well, I wish you the best. We hope to be inspiring better business. Thank you.